She's a black lady. She moved, but she worked for me, and I thought her. She treated me with we live in her official house. And sometimes they say, that I don't see that they can drive. Now, there was I was cleaning things, they would spend that, they would lose their job.
Okay, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Calling the meeting to order. Welcome to the August 13th, 2024 regular meeting of the Community Development Commission of Chicago. I am Gwendolyn Hatton Butler, Chair of the CDC. Today's meeting is being held at City Hall, room 1103, and is also being streamed by the Department of Planning and Development. The agenda for today's meeting was posted on August 8th, both on the CDC website and physically at City Hall. I will now call to order the August 13th meeting of the Community Development Commission with a call of the roll. Commissioners, when your name is called, please respond by saying present. Please note this vote will be used to establish the roll call vote for subsequent items. Vice Chair Thomas. Present. Secretary Chan McKibben.
Present.
DPD Commissioner Sierra Boatwright.
Present.
Commissioner Robert Buford. Commissioner Curtis.
Present.
Commissioner Davis. Commissioner Gomez.
Present.
Commissioner Griggs. Commissioner Zayas.
Present.
And Chair Hatton Butler is present. Thank you, Commissioners. We have a quorum. At this time, we will begin the verbal public comment period of the meeting. Members of the public were able to submit written statements to the Commission via email. There were no written statements from the public received by the Department of Planning and Development prior to the established deadline of 24 hours prior to the scheduled start of the meeting. The verbal public comment period will be limited to 30 minutes out of respect for everyone's time. Speakers were able to sign up to speak prior to the meeting and will be called in the order they arrived. During this public comment period, each speaker is limited to 3 minutes to allow time for as many speakers as possible. We would ask that you keep your comments relevant to items on today's agenda. So the first speaker that has signed up to speak today is Mr. George Blakemore. Mr. Blakemore, do you have any comments you'd like to make prior to the presentations?
Yes.
Okay, so Mr. Blakemore, we're going to give you 3 minutes. And there is, if I can just explain to everyone that's here, 2 meetings ago, we changed our procedures and moved the public comment period from after each presentation to the beginning of the meeting. And this coincides with the practices followed by all other city commissions. We've been challenged on that today, and out of respect for everyone's time, and also given the fact that it's unclear as to whether that process change has been published, Mr. Blakemore has asked, and I have agreed as chair of the commission, to allow him 3 minutes to speak after each presentation. So I'm making the commissioners aware of that. Between now and then, we will get Mr. Blakemore the information that he's requested we provide him that reflects our process change. And starting the September meeting, we'll go back to the process that we established 2 meetings ago with having public comment, all public comments at the beginning of the meeting. So is the commissioner, are members of the commission okay with that? Okay, so Mr. Blakemore,
Well, you were right here, it's okay, or where?
where would you like him to stand for his comments, or for any comments?
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chairman Butler. My name is George Whittle, and I have been attending the Commission on Planning, Development Commission for several years. It's very important to have public comment. And it's very important for the public to be educated and informed about each item. Previously, what happened here several years ago, I attended this meeting. And as I was speaking, it was about Sterling Bay and Lincoln York. And I was appalled with what was going on at that development. Our Black developers, they didn't even want poor Black people to live there. So I was challenging a commission. So they recessed the meeting, David Reedman and Ferris, I think, for 15 minutes. Called down to the first floor to the police, said, "You'll let Mr. Blakemore back again." But I proceeded to come when the meeting was open. I was thrown down and pulled out, and my head hit the marble floor. 2 people came in, a white lady and a Black one was in the meeting, say, "Take these handcuffs off of this man, take them off now." And the attorney then said, "We might have to rush him to the hospital." It's very important for Black people to be in this meeting. That 2 or 3 Black ladies are on this, all the others are white. And most of the people here, racism is alive here. I came here to make sure and see what each one of these items was about, to make sure that Black people would be included in this process, getting these jobs, goods, contracts, and service. And to change the procedure, it's 4 items or 10 items. I will speak 1 time, 3 minutes on each item. It's never been like that. Each item, they will make a presentation, then the public will be able to speak on that presentation. Because after they make the presentation, during the time, I'm listening. And as I listen and be informed and educated, then I speak on that item. This is the first time I've seen these items. I'm not informed on these 4 items. So I want to be intelligent and articulate and seem like the commission will want their speakers to be informed. That you shouldn't go back to that format. You got to educate your people. Thank God for you 3 Black ladies here today. Thank you, and big to all of you. And I'm gonna speak on many items, and thank you, Madam Butler. Thank you, may God bless you. And put that
Stop my
button.
timer.
I'm not the typical one.
Okay. Cancel, I'm gonna cancel, sorry. This is what happens when you don't have somebody
Well,
actually.
Butler,
I got
even the
it.
Butlers are like what's been happening to our people. Butlers don't even like it.
Okay.
Praise God, Butler. Praise God.
All right, I'm gonna say something.
So glad to see these 3 Black ladies there.
All right. So we failed the technology test. All right, the next speaker we have is Zoe Lee.
You want me to do the thing?
Yes, please, thank you.
Hi, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm fine. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. I would like to see if it could be a meeting set up about this TIF money going to the Black communities and the percentage that we're supposed to have. Like I said, I've been researching this TIF money. I've talked to a few other states that have this TIF money, and it's not being allocated the way that it needs to be in our communities. And again, this election is coming up. It's less than 80 days. I've been speaking to a lot of people, and I've set up a few meetings with a few delegates next week, very prominent delegates, national delegates for during the DNC about the Black agenda, about our Black economic resources in our communities, and basically starting to get a lot of people that are my age and younger into what we need to be voting for, and as far as local and state, a lot of our city council members have sold us out a long time ago. It's a new generation, and it's hard for us to get some of this TIF money because it starts with our city council members who have sold us out when it comes to a lot of these developers and stuff like that. So I would like to see if I can sit down with someone in this meeting to speak about this TIF money, when it comes to our communities, when it comes to the resources that we need in our communities, and our 30% that we should receive, because if we're 12% of the Black community in Chicago, we should get it. There's a lot of Black contractors and developers that are not on these jobs, but what we're listening, what has happened recently in the last week and a half with Home Depot getting sued and CPD getting sued by a lot of illegal immigrants that came over here because they feel like they're not getting any contract work, and that's insane. But we have plenty of workers and contractors and developers in our community that are Black, not Black and brown, that are Black, that are not getting the services that they need. So I would like to speak to someone about this. And if not, like I said, a lot of us are politically ignorant, but we are starting to wake up, and we're starting to know that we can vote people out. We also know that we can put our own people in there because it's our generation, it's our time. So I need to speak to someone about this to help educate us, and it should be no issue. It should be no problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. The public comment period of today's meeting is now over. The first item on our agenda requests approval of the minutes from our previous meeting held on July 9th, 2024. The commissioners have had an opportunity to review the minutes, and if there are no corrections, I move passage of this item by the same roll call vote previously used to establish quorum. Are there any changes or corrections to the minutes? Hearing no corrections or objections, the motion is approved. Commissioners, for the first item of new business on today's agenda, the Department of Planning and Development is requesting that the commission accept for review the amended redevelopment plan for the proposed Diversey Chicago River Tax Increment Financing Redevelopment Project Area Amendment Number 1. As part of this request, DPD is also seeking to set September 5, 2024 as the date for the public meeting of the Joint Review Board, and to set October 8, 2024 as the date of the public hearing convened at the CDC meeting to review the proposed TIF amendment. On August 2nd, 2024, DPD placed a copy of the proposed amendment to the Diversey Chicago River Redevelopment Plan and Eligibility Report on file with the city clerk's office for review by the public. Additionally, commissioners, each of you have received an electronic copy of the updated documents from DPD directly. Since this action is merely to accept these documents for review, and set a date for public meetings, there will be no presentation at this time. DPD staff will, however, provide a full presentation on the proposed amendment number 1 of the Diversity Chicago River TIF District at the October 8th meeting of the Community Development Commission. If there are no further questions or comments regarding the matter before us, I will call this item to a vote. The resolution before us would accept for review the amended redevelopment plan for the proposed Diversity Chicago River Tax Increment Financing Redevelopment Project Area Amendment number 1 and set September 5th, 2024 as the date for the public meeting of the Joint Review Board and set October 8th, 2024 as the date of the public hearing convened at the CDC meeting to review the proposed TIF amendment. If there are no objections, I move passage of this item by the same roll call vote previously used to establish quorum. Are there any objections? Hearing none, the motion is approved. Commissioners, for the next item of new business on today's agenda, the Department of Housing is seeking authority to negotiate a redevelopment agreement with LeClaire Partners A North JV LP or related entity for redevelopment of the property located at 4400 through 4458 South Cicero Avenue in the Cicero Stevenson Tax Increment Financing Redevelopment Project area, and to recommend to the City Council of the City of Chicago the designation of LeClaire Partners A North JV LP or related entity as developer. Dinah Wayne will provide a brief description of this request on behalf of the Department of Housing. Thank you. I'd like to note that Commissioner Davis is here. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair Butler. You're here, as the screen says, to talk about 4400 to 4458 South Cicero Avenue. Which very excitingly is the first, they will be the first buildings to break ground in the LeClaire Courts redevelopment. So you can see by that little red circle on the map, it's in the 22nd Ward, the Garfield Ridge community area, the Cicero Stevenson TIF, and the Southwest Planning area. The orangish outline there outlines the LeClaire Court TIF, the entire TIF, Cicero Stevenson TIF, I should say, which was put into place for the benefit of the redevelopment of the LeClaire Court site, the CHA project site. The buildings we're going to talk about today are where the N for north is and the S for south. The south building is along 45th Street on the south and Cicero's on the east. And the north building, again, Cicero on the east and 44th Street on the north. Oops. This is what it looks like now. If you go to Midway Airport and get off 55, you see a lot of, it's actually kind of pleasant, a lot of green space with a fence that goes along Cicero Avenue. This is the entire master plan for this site. Obviously, there was a lot on LeClaire Courts. The last buildings were torn down in 2011, but it was built in 1960, I believe, and had over 700 residential units. Again, the last ones were torn down, and it's been a vacant site waiting for redevelopment since then. And just to say, it was actually 1950 that the original project was built. The two buildings we'll talk about today are in orange there, and then the rest illustrate future phases. A close-up of the site plan. The building with Martin Luther King on it, this will be the building on the north, and this building will shown here is the building on the south. A summary of the project. The applicant is the Habitat Company and Cabrera Capital Partners. It's a joint venture, And the CHA, a related entity of theirs, is going to have 15% ownership in the managing member. Again, it's the mixed use redevelopment of a portion of the Leclerc Court North. They're going to be, is part of this partnership, 160 units, of which 110 will be in the north building and 50 in the south building. The income mix, you'll see there, it's 1 unit at 30% AMI or below, 33 units at 40% AMI, 76 at 60%, 34 units at 80% or below, and 16 market rate units. We're going to use income averaging, and that allows for the units to be as high as 80% for the LIHTC units. They're coming to the city and to this body with a request of $5.5 million in TIF. You can see the total budget cost of approximately $97.2 million. We want to get this through City Council this year because the 2 TIFs that are going to, the money is going to be ported from the Midway Industrial TIF and the Cicero Archer TIF expire at the end of this year. So we want to get this through City Council, but closing on the whole project is anticipated for April of 2025, with construction beginning a year after, and as you can see, completing it then in September of 2026. The development team, again, I mentioned Habitat and Cabrera, the architect of record, Solomon Cordwell Benz, George Solid Construction Company is the GC, Applegate Thorne Thompson is the attorney, and they're still working out the lender. In terms of the project budget, that looks a little small. Again, the city is being asked to provide the $5.5 million in TIF. They're also coming to the city for a little bit of, a little over $9 million for a city multifamily loan. IDA is taking a very large financing portion of this project. They're providing bond financing, which will generate over $30 million and 4% tax credits. They're also providing a subordinate loan of some sort, about $10.8 million, and tax credits for the project as well. And you can see that other financing thrown in, including a very major CHA capital loan of $27 million. So really all of the agencies are working together to make this a reality. Again, the TIF funds, which we're suggesting be dispersed at 30%, 90%, and 100% completion. The project will provide 80 replacement CHA units and 64 additional affordable units. Overall, in terms of tax revenue, the developer had projections done which estimate that 4.2 million just for this Leclerc North project alone will be generated. And then again, the customary MBE, WB, and city residency rules will be followed. So finally, DOH and DPD recommend that the CDC recommended the City Council designation of Leclerc Partners A North, JVLP, or a related party as the developer for the development of a mixed-use affordable housing at 4400 to 4458 South Cicero Avenue. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much. If present, I would like to recognize Alderman Rodriguez and invite them to make a statement on the project. Is the Alderman here, anyone from their office? Okay, commissioners, do you have any questions for Dina Wayne regarding this request by the Department of Housing?
Hi, Vice Chairman Kevin here. Wanted to see if you or the developers can explain how you arrived at the distribution of the 30%, 40%, 60%, 80% and market rate. So I was struck by the fact that there's only one unit that said,
30%.
Yeah.
I've neglected to mention that I'm joined by Corey Shen and Christina Martinez, Seda Martinez from CHA, Dave Mevis, they're waving, from the Habitat Company, Manny Perez from Cabrera. I don't know, Dave, if you'd like to speak to how the unit mix was developed or.
Sure.
When,
Yeah, that'd be great.
there is
You don't have to all turn
speak
around.
loudly,
Thank you.
yes, thank you.
Do you mind if I ask you to repeat the question?
Yeah, so the question was, about the distribution of the different types of affordability and how you arrived at those percentages, how you arrived at the number of units for each of those levels.
Yeah, well, it's
You have to introduce yourself, please.
Oh,
Say
that's
your
right.
name and
Okay.
who you're from.
okay, thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Dave Mavis. I'm the Vice President of Community Development for the Habitat Company. As was mentioned, the Leclerc Courts redevelopment is a joint venture between the Habitat Company and Cabrera Capital Partners, with Habitat leading on the residential and Cabrera Capital leading on the commercial redevelopment. So to your question as to the distribution of units, from the very onset of the project, it's always been conceived as a mixed income project. In fact, the CHA, when they put it out for RFP, incentivized, mixed income projects. Just recently, the state, IDA, has been allowing mixed income projects, which allows some of the units, some of the tax credit units to go up to 80% of area median instead of the typical 60% cap, which frankly enables us to borrow a little bit more first mortgage proceeds because we generate a little bit more rent on those units. It's not a huge difference, but every little bit. The other thing is, in applying for the tax credits with IDA, we are also incentivized through the scoring system to have different, groupings and sort of income bands along the way. So it's not a traditional 100% at 60% of AMI. The CHA has an interest and a mandate in having some portion of market rate units. Generally, we don't see that being a lot greater than 10% because, quite honestly, those units don't pay for themselves because the rents would have to be much higher in order to support the cost of construction, but it is an important dynamic of the project. But we don't generate tax credits off of those units. We don't generate home funds or any of those others. So that's usually going to be a little bit smaller percentage. And then, at the other end, we try to maximize points by having extremely low income households, which is not my term, that's a legal term for 30% of AMI or below. We have a number of units that IDA requires to be housed under the state referral network. And those units can go as low as 15% of AMI. And so we actually will have a small number of 15% and 30%. And then I'm throwing a lot of stats at you, and hopefully you can follow. The CHA units, the RAD project-based voucher units, those units technically could go as high as 80% AMI and still qualify under the tax credit program. But what the experience has been is that the average median income of those households tends to be closer to 30%. So even though we're not restricting those units to 30%, that's who actually, on average, winds up, residing in those units. So we actually wind up with quite a wide diversity between as low as 15, but really kind of 30, 60 to 80, and then a small number that may be a little bit above that are the unrestricted. I'll stop talking because I've been accused of over-explaining. So.
Yeah, no, I was particularly struck by how few units were on the lower income spectrum. So one unit at 30, 33 at 40. So just, I think you explained overall how you arrived at, the mix, but I was just particularly interested in how you arrived at the numbers that are on the lower end.
Yeah.
Just, for affordability.
Right. So in doing that, we tend to, once we make a declaration of what the income limit is, we, obviously must abide by that for 30 or 40 years. And so if a household is housed under the state referral network, the fact is that they're going to be 30% or below regardless of what our regulatory agreement says. So it's kind of like there's more than one document that governs what the AMI of those units is. And similarly, although the CHA units aren't restricted to 30%, we know that a great bulk of the households that reside here probably, I don't know if I had to guess, 30 to 40% will be in the neighborhood of 30% AMI or below. So it actually looks much worse than it is. And, we want to give ourselves, the flexibility as we move forward. For instance, at some point in the future, maybe the state referral network program or the rent subsidy that goes along with that. Well, actually, there isn't a rent subsidy that goes along with it. You have to go out and find rent subsidy for those units because those households are not generally employed. They're either disabled or otherwise unemployable and living off of, Social Security or something where they couldn't afford even a kind of restricted rent. So they require a rent subsidy. A portion of those are subsidized through the CHA, usually about half of the SRN units. But a portion of them, we have to go out and find other rent subsidy sources. Oftentimes it would be like the Chicago CLIF, the Chicago Low Income Housing Trust Fund, which most of you are probably familiar with or at least have heard of. So I'm not sure. I mean, Dina and I may need to talk offline that one unit at 30%. We do have two buildings that we're building, and there's certainly 30% units in the other building as well. There's A North and A South. We're primarily focused on A North here today because that's the building that's going to receive the TIF funds. But the two, they only work together. It's a twin financing structure. We can't do one without the other.
So this is Chair Hatton, but as a follow-up to Secretary Chan McKibben's question, drilling down a little bit more on some of your comments. We see what the project summary says. When you did the financial projections for revenue and expenses related to this particular phase of this redevelopment, what did you pencil in with respect to the number of units at 30-40% AMI versus what we see there?
Good afternoon. Thank you. My name is Christina Martinez Aguirre, and I'm with the Chicago Housing Authority. We're working in tandem with the Habitat Company and Cabrera Capital on the redevelopment of LeClaire. I wanted to address a couple of clarification points with respect to the development and the unit mix. I think it's important to clarify that phase one residential of the LeClaire redevelopment is a mixed income project. And so to take on the type of project this is, the magnitude of this redevelopment, we need to access different sources of finance. As you know, in your role as members of the CDC. And so really the only way that we can develop a project like this is with the ability to access low-income housing tax credits, certainly public financing to leverage private financing. And as part of the requirement in using public financing, we have to structure the transaction and the unit mix at various income levels, right, to make the financing work. And so it's really a matter of how many units can we have at what end? At the end of the day, really, and just to clarify with the Chicago Housing Authority, what we can do is our residents we are able to go up to 80% of AMI. And so while they pay no more than 30% of their income towards their rent, a good number of our residents are making more than 30% of the area median income, but they're still eligible to be CHA residents and to lease a unit. And so I do want to clarify that point. And again, phase one residential, A North and A South are both mixed income transactions. So we will have market rate units We will have affordable tax credit units as well as CHA units. And then the target, I know that your initial question was about how the units would be distributed. And so they will be distributed throughout the building. So we won't have one tier of just CHA and one tier of just market rate units. They will be distributed throughout the building and among both buildings.
So Chair Hatton Butler, as a follow-up, and then I'm sorry, Secretary
Yeah,
Chamigan.
go ahead.
On the market rate units, will there be a discernible difference in the amenities in the market rate units versus the other units?
No,
Could
not
you
only,
just have to introduce yourself?
oh, each time, okay.
Yes.
Dave Mavis, the Habitat Company, not only will there not be a discernible difference, there will not be a difference in the amenities for the market rate and the affordable units. They will be well amenitized and the building itself, the common areas. A desirable amenity package that are all available to everybody without regard to, income tiering.
Secretary
so-
Chamigan.
So the intent of my question is to see if you can answer the question of whether you think you're maximizing the number of units that are offered to the lowest income people. I think that's really, you kept answering the
Right.
question as if I'm more concerned about whether they're market rate. I'm less concerned that there are units for people that can afford market rate. I'm more concerned whether there are enough units, given that there aren't. It's rare that we have a development that's this large in an area that's growing, that, it would be very desirable to have the largest number of units be for people with the lowest income. So I think that's fine.
Okay, thank you for clarifying your question. I believe.
I'm sorry, I need for you to, for purposes of the
Oh,
public
okay.
record.
My name is
Introduce
Christina
yourself. Thank
Martinez
you.
Sagun, and I'm with the Chicago Housing Authority. I think, number one, that's the goal, right? Number one. I think the second piece is, this is just the first phase of residential. We expect and anticipate that there will be future phases of residential housing to provide additional opportunities for maximizing access for low-income families to be able to live at Leclerc Courts. I think one of the primary goals as well for the project, as well as for CHA, is to ensure the right of return residents that were once living here to be able to access housing again. And so our goal, along with Habitat Carrera, is to ensure, and the Alderman's office as well, is to ensure that we allow opportunities for low-income families to be able to live in this area. I think one of the ways that we do that, obviously, is through the project-based voucher program. And so the ability to have
Through which program?
project-based.
To speak up.
Okay. Project-based voucher program. I don't want to yell.
Please do, please do.
But please do. So through the project-based voucher program, that program allows very low-income families the ability to rent housing and pay no more than the 30% of their income towards the rent. The difference or the bulk of the rent is picked up through the voucher program. So I think that this will be an opportunity to allow access to low-income families to be able to live in a brand new unit at Leclerc. That's our goal.
Oh, okay, so I'm sorry, Commissioner, Vice Chair Thomas, and then Commissioner Davis.
I wanted to know if this was a RAD or new market tax credit deal, with all of the different funding sources.
It's a,
Could you bring up the funding source?
Oh.
Before you speak, you need to announce who you are.
Okay, so I'm Dina Wayne with the Department of Housing. Here's the project budget. It doesn't show, but the CHA capital loan is capital money, and then the subsidy will be RAD subsidies, and there are no new market tax credits in this deal.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Vice Chair
No,
Davis?
I understand it's a RAD deal, and I can see from the stack, it looks more like a RAD deal.
Okay, Commissioner Davis?
So my question is, not to go back, but that just for me to understand a little bit better. When you said that, and I heard what you said, but when you said that it doesn't look it's not actually as bad as it looks. What I wanna understand is why it is that it can't be better than it is already. Like, why is it that it has to be structured this way such that you couldn't have done it differently, so that you already at this phase have additional housing? So that's a little bit of a different, I think you may have answered, but I didn't understand the answer to that.
Dave Mavis, the Habitat Company. I have my computer open now and a little bit more information. I actually tried to print this stuff out old fashioned before I came, and that did not work. So it actually is better than, with all due respect, what Dina was showing. And that's more on us than anything, because the way we look at the underwriting is based on the income of those units. So, the rent of those units. So even though there may be units at 30%, the rent is based on whether it's a CHA subsidized unit or whether it's the subsidy comes from Cliff. That rent is closer to FMR, fair market rent, than it is to the rent that an unsubsidized household at 15 or 30% would have to pay. Would be a very small number, like $400 or $500, rents we haven't seen in the city in decades. So I do want to refresh some numbers for you, because I don't want you to leave here thinking that we haven't maximized this. I think this deal will compare very favorably to other deals that are getting financed in the city in terms of the income mix. Okay, we've got 15 units, our state referral network units. So that's 15 units at 30% or less AMI, but they're showing up in a different bucket because of the FMR rent that we will receive on those units. So it's actually, and Dina's not wrong to have reflected it the way she was. We could have probably connected on this a little bit because the optics are not great, but that's actually a really large number. We maximized. We have never done a deal with 15 SRN units. You may have heard of Ogden Commons in North Lawndale on Ogden Avenue. We are leasing up the first building and closing on the financing for the second one in the fall. And we don't have 15 SRN units in those two buildings combined. It's more like 10 or 12. So this is kind of a high watermark for us. And then in addition to that, because of the income averaging, although we do have some tax credit units at 80%, which may make people feel uncomfortable, like maybe that's not what the subsidy is really for. The flip side to that is that enables us, where the word averaging comes in is the average income still has to be 60% or less. So that means for every unit we want to do at 80, we got to do a unit at 40, because 80 and 40 equals 60, right? So we actually have a very high number of units at 40% AMI, which is very close to 30% AMI. And those are unsubsidized units. So these are for households that are making less than or equal to 40% of the area median income. That's a very low number, and those rents are going to be very, very affordable. So when I add those units to the SRN units, there's a really high number. I would stack it up against any deal being built in the city right now in terms of units that are 40% or less AMI. Unless you're looking at a straight 100% permanent supportive housing deal. I'm just trying to explain, I don't mean to sound too defensive but I wanted to reassure you that, we're doing everything we can. And why not more? Because every unit that we add that is at that lower AMI increases the amount of subsidy that we need. And as you can see from the slide that Dina showed earlier, we're getting a lot of subsidy. We've got item maxed out at 10% of total development costs. We're asking for every TIF dollar remaining in this TIF area, which has been declining over the last year as we've worked on this deal from 10 to 9 to 6 to 5.5. That's why we're trying to, put a stake in the ground there. home funds, you know, and then, of course, the bonds and the tax credits. And so that's kind of why there's not more, but we also we're not apologetic about the mix that we do have. We think it's actually really, really good.
I'd like to just make one other statement. Christina Martinez Sahun with Chicago Housing Authority. I think part of the driver as well for why the project is structured this way has a lot to do with program requirements for the financing that we're utilizing. And so when you ask the question, did we structure it this way? The driver is the underwriting criteria for the financing that's available and the project funds that are available to develop affordable housing. And I know that you hear this often, that resources are dwindling and it's very difficult to develop affordable housing. And so developers need to be creative in creating a project that makes sense, that maximizes resources and meets objectives of the project and the programs that we're utilizing.
Commissioner Davis.
That's helpful, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Boatright.
Yeah, Commissioner Boatright, DPD, one suggestion I can make, I think just for presentation purposes, because you did do a phenomenal job explaining the breakout and the AMIs. Perhaps our next presentation, we can kind of show a table that lists the different AMIs, how many units, so it's a little easier to read, so it truly captures
Agreed.
the breadth and depth of diversity in income and unit mix throughout. Just something that we can do to kind of make the presentation a little smoother, easier for the commissioners to read.
Any additional
No.
questions from members of the commission? Mr. Blakemore?
Yes, it's quite interesting.
Mr. Blakemore, would you mind coming to the table, please?
It's CTE, public land. And they're getting out of house Black people. I'm specifically here playing the race card. CHA, government house. Most of the people historically live in public house. With Black people. Now the government is getting out of that, going into an agreement with the city and county government. And this location is in a predominant out by the airport Hispanic area. I played race. I use the race card. Why do you do this, Mr. Blakemore? Mr. Blakemore? Because I can. And I'm advocating for Black people. And when I read up here, I'm making statements. MBs, WBs, Habitat, and all of that. I think Valerie Jordan got a big percent of interest in one of these. Anyway, the bottom line is economic development for Black people. I'm connecting the dots. That's the bottom line. How many people gonna be working? How many Black engineers and architects and plumbers? I'm bringing it down simple. I'm not playing no game with you white folks and you Black folks that's sitting on this committee. It's about economic development for our people. And when we've been gentrified out of this city, and I'm seeing other ethnic groups and that finance with that Mexican company or something. This is blood, sweat, and tears money, Black folks' money. And I have to go to the building commission. So I would love to clone Mr. Blakemore. To clone him. I want to go across the street and the same mess is going on over there. It's going on over here. But we have Black faces here. So the bottom line is poor Black people are not receiving housing. Now another demographic of people coming in is Hispanic. They don't be in public housing and finance. So again, it's 2:18 now. I gotta run over there. And nobody wanna see me and nobody wanna hear me. That's a Hispanic. I look at race in a racist a country and a racist city. Black faces in high places, trying to people out. With that MBE and WBs, I've been seeing this doodle going on for years. when it comes back, I'll look at who's gonna be doing this work. How much money and economic development gonna come to the black people. These showers are blessed. When they get down to us, they're golden showers. We did nothing, nothing. So again, you were so eloquent, Ms. Bugger, to kind of change your format and to allow me to speak on each item. And the way I can speak intelligently about these items is that I'm informed once you make your presentation. Once you make your presentation, I was listening. If I ever spoke on with 3 items for all, no. Keep this old format because I still need to be educated, but I know the basics. And it's just another dog and pony show. Government, the public housing, the old federal government is getting out of it. Housing black people. So you were so gracious to let me, but I want to go to that mayor, the building commission, public building commission.
Thank you, Mr.
And
Blakemore.
thank you. It's just another game that's being played.
If there are no further questions or comments regarding the matter before us, I will call this item to a vote.
Nothing.
The resolution before us will grant the Department of Housing authority to
Thank you.
negotiate a redevelopment agreement with LeClaire Partners A, North JV LP, or related entity for redevelopment of the property located at 4400 through 4458 South Cicero Avenue in the Cicero Stevenson Tax Increment Financing Redevelopment Project Area, and to recommend to the City Council of the City of Chicago the designation of LeClaire Partners A, North JV LP, or related entity as developer. If there are no objections, I move passage of this item by the same roll call vote previously used to establish quorum. I understand we have an abstention.
Yes, same.
Commissioner Gomez abstains. Are there any additional abstentions or objections? Hearing no additional abstentions or rejections, the motion is approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Very much. Commissioners, for the next item of new business on today's agenda, Department of Planning and Development is seeking authority to enter into a land sale agreement with Matthew Skronowski and Catherine McIlvaine for the disposition of the property located at 6411 South Central Avenue in the Archer Central Tax Increment Financing Redevelopment Project area. Nolan Zaroff will present a brief description of this request on behalf of the Department of Planning and Development.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairwoman, members of the Commission. Again, for the record, my name is Nolan Zaroff with the Department of Planning and Development. The resolution before you requests a recommendation to the City Council to authorize the disposition of city-owned property located at 6411 South Central Avenue within the Archer Central redevelopment area to Matthew Skronowski and Catherine McIlvaine. 6411 South Central Avenue is a decommissioned Chicago Fire Department firehouse located in the 13th Ward, represented by Alderman Martin Quinn in the Clearing Community area. It is in the Southwest Planning Region in the Archer Central TIF District. This TIF district was established in 2000 with some of the goals being to stabilize and enhance the real estate tax base, improve property through building renovation and restoration, and reduce or eliminate the conditions that qualify the area as a conservation area. The Alderman is supportive of the project and has provided a letter of support. Here is an aerial view, hard to see, but here's an aerial view of the neighborhood. The subject property located in red on the map is on the east side of Central Avenue between 64th Street and 64th Place, 2.5 blocks south of Midway Airport. Here is a view showing the exterior condition of the building, both from the street and from the alley behind. The property includes the area you see enclosed by the fence. Through our land sale process, the application submitted by Matthew Skronowski and Catherine McIlvaine was selected. The applicant proposes to redevelop the firehouse into a single-family residence that will include 3 bedrooms, a kitchen, dining room, and living room on the second floor, and a 2-car garage, storage, and home office on the first floor. The applicant is not seeking any city financial assistance. The Department of Planning and Development has agreed to put the purchase price into an environmental escrow to reimburse the applicant for environmental testing and remediation work on the property. The total project cost is estimated to be $305,440 and will take approximately 6 months to complete upon closing. The development team includes the applicants, Matthew Skoronsky and Catherine McIlvain, CJ Architects, and Ujama Construction. The project will be financed through a mix of equity, private bank loans, and an environmental escrow to offset the costs of remediation. The project is not receiving TIF funds or other city financial assistance. Here is a conceptual rendering of the final exterior of the building. And here is a rendering of the proposed interior floor plan. The DPD has thoroughly reviewed the proposed project, its public benefits, and the project's conformance with the redevelopment plan. DPD recommends that the CDC approve the sale of the parcel located at 6411 South Central Avenue to Matthew Skoronsky and Catherine McIlvain so that the project can advance to City Council. Thank you for your time, and myself and the applicant are here and available to answer any questions you might have.
Great, thank you. If present, I would like to recognize Alderman Quinn and invite them or someone from their office to make a statement on the project. Is anyone here from the Alderman's office?
The Alderman was not able to attend, but he did provide a letter of support.
Okay, great. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Nolan Zaroff or the purchaser for regarding this request by the Department of Planning and Development? Actually, I have a question. What is the sale price for the property and what's it based on an appraisal?
It is. It was $65,000 and it was based on an appraisal.
And is that the market value for the appraisal?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioners, yes, Commissioner
Yes.
Curtis?
Thank you. I just had a comment to make. It looks like a great facility, looks like a nice home. The project cost is about $305,000. That's terrific. The last project, the low income housing we were looking at was $607,000 per unit. It looks like that we should be able to get about twice as many units out of the other project as we are out of what we have budgeted. I think the concept of low income housing is terrific. I just think we ought to be able to get twice as many homes out of the amount that we're investing. This is a $305,000 home. It looks like a very nice home. That's all I had. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Curtis. I think that that's a subject that we visited just about every meeting.
And I probably will continue. to
Yeah, and
visit.
that's fine. I mean, it's a reflection of the cost of affordable housing. which-
I think that, you're,
Soft costs.
Yes,
I think that you're probably right, but I think there ought to be a solution that needs to be found so that we can provide more homes than what we are. And I think that you're right, there may be reasons for that, and they may be complicated reasons. But I think that to continue to provide half as many homes as we should for the investments that we're making, I think is an issue. Thank you for listening.
yeah, thank you. I think everyone on the commission and in the Department of Planning and Development, Department of Housing agrees with that statement. Any other additional comments or questions from members of the commission? If there are no further questions or comments regarding the matter before us, I will call this item to a vote. The resolution before us will grant the Department of Planning and Development authority to enter into a land sale agreement with Matthew Skoronsky and Catherine McIlvain for the disposition of the property located at 6411 South Central Avenue in the Archer Central Tax Increment Financing redevelopment project area. If there are no objections, I move passage of this item by the same roll call vote previously used to establish quorum. Are there any objections or abstentions? Hearing none, the motion is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, for the next item of new business on today's agenda, the Department of Planning and Development is seeking authority to enter into a land sale agreement with Stephen Hunter for the disposition of the property located at 6642 through 6644 South Aberdeen Street in the Inglewood Neighborhood Tax Increment Financing Redevelopment Project area. Taylor Thompson will provide a brief description of this request on behalf of the Department of Planning and Development.
Good afternoon, Chairwoman Butler and members of the commission. For the record, my name is Taylor Thompson. I represent the Department of Planning and Development. This project is the open space land sale of 6642, 6644 South Aberdeen Street to Stephen Hunter. The city parcel is located within the Inglewood Neighborhood TIF redevelopment area with the 16th ward, within the 16th ward with the support of Alderwoman Stephanie Cole. CDC approval is required for the sale of the property located within the redevelopment area. This slide provides an overview of the land sale project. The purchaser is Stephen Hunter, who lives on the block at 6601 South Aberdeen Street and proposes to create a community garden to share the produce within the neighborhood. His garden partner is his father and has activated many gardens throughout the city. With the recent closure of the Whole Foods grocer in Inglewood, they have a renewed focus on finding creative solutions for the food desert circumstances. His budget is approximately $9,000. Open space land sales are sold at 10% of market value, and the combined sale price of the two parcels is $3,139. The two properties completed environmental phase 1 study and have environmental clearance for sale. This slide shows the location of the disposition parcel within Inglewood and within the Inglewood Neighborhood TIF redevelopment area. The TIF district was created in 2001, and its redevelopment objectives included encouraging private investment and redevelopment of underutilized properties. The above map identified the city parcels at 6642 and 6644 South Aberdeen Street. This slide is the Google Street View, the site photo and plans, and the budget breakdown. In summary, the Department of Planning and Development has thoroughly reviewed the proposal for the sale of city property located at 6642 and 6644 South Aberdeen Street to Stephen Hunter. The department has reviewed its public benefits and the project's conformance with the redevelopment area plan. The department recommends that the CDC recommends to the city council the approval of the city's disposition of property. That concludes my presentation of this item.
Thank you. If present, I would like to recognize Alderwoman Coleman and invite her to make a statement on the project. Is the Alderwoman here or anyone from their office? Taylor?
They were not able to make it, but she did provide it us.
Great, thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Taylor Thompson regarding this request by the Department of Planning and Development? If there are no further questions or comments regarding the matter before us, I will call this item to a vote.
One quick question.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Davis.
Yeah, thank you. Is Stephen Hunter a lawyer?
I do not believe so. He's not.
Okay. Just want to make sure I didn't know Stephen Hunter. That's all.
Okay, if there are no further questions or comments regarding the matter before us, I will call this item to a vote. The resolution before us will grant the Department of Planning and Development authority to enter into a land sale agreement with Stephen Hunter for the disposition of the property located at 6642 through 6644 South Aberdeen Street in the Inglewood Neighborhood Tax Increment Financing Redevelopment Project area. If there are no objections or abstentions, I move passage of this item by the same roll call vote previously used to establish quorum. Are there any objections or abstentions? Hearing none, the motion is approved. Commissioners, for the last item of new business on today's agenda, the Department of Planning and Development is seeking authority to enter into a land sale with Luis Gomez for the disposition of the property located at 1841 West 51st Street in the 47th Ashland Tax Increment Financing Redevelopment Project area. Taylor Thompson will provide a brief description of this request on behalf of the Department of Planning and Development.
For the record, my name is Taylor Thompson. I'm representing the Department of Planning and Development. This project is the proposed open space land sale of 1841 West 51st Street to Luis Gomez. The city parcel is located within the 47th and Ashland 10th redevelopment area within the 16th ward with the support of Alderman Stephanie Coleman. The slide provides an overview of the land sale project. The purchaser is Luis Gomez, who has lived on the block at 1849 West 51st Street for over 10 years. He plans to create a fenced community plaza and garden that will be open to the neighborhood. His family owns a landscaping company that will maintain the property. They plan to add a 200-gallon water tank, native plants, and seating. His budget is approximately $26,000. The property completed an environmental phase one study. And has environmental clearance for sale. This slide shows the location of the disposition parcel within New City and within the 47th and Ashland 10th redevelopment area. The TIF district was created in 2002, and its redevelopment objectives included encouraging private investment and redevelopment of underutilized properties. The above map identifies the city parcel as 1841 West 51st Street. This slide is the Google Street View with site photo and plans, and the budget breakdown. In summary, the Department of Planning and Development has thoroughly reviewed the proposal for sale of the city parcel located at 1841 West 51st Street to Luis Gomez. The department has reviewed its public benefits and the project's conformance with the redevelopment area plan. The department recommends that the CDC recommend to the City Council their approval for the city's disposition of property. That concludes the presentation.
Thank you. Taylor, you indicated that Alderwoman Coleman supports this project.
Yes, she supports both projects.
We have a letter on record from her.
Yes, we have 2
Great,
letters.
thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Taylor regarding this request by the Department of Planning and Development? If there are no further questions or comments regarding the matter before us, I will call this item to a vote. The resolution before us, the Department of Planning and Development is seeking authority to enter into a land sale with Luis Gomez for the disposition of the property located at 1841 West 51st Street in the 47th Ashland Tax Increment Financing Redevelopment Project area. If there are no objections or abstentions, I move passage of this item by the same roll call vote previously used to establish quorum. Any objections or abstentions? Hearing none, the motion is approved. Commissioners, that was the last item on today's agenda. If there are no further questions or comments, I move to adjourn the August 13th, 2024 meeting of the Community Development Commission by the same roll call vote previously used to establish quorum. Hearing none, we are adjourned.
Thank you.